Hello, and welcome to my Lead What You Live podcast. This is Tina Lizzio, for those of you who haven't tuned in yet before. And I have a special guest with me today. She's with me, not physically here at the studio, across the country in San Diego today, a digital nomad, inspiring coach. She has, again, been on the show with me before, and I look forward to a continuing conversation across generations about all things in the domains of health, wealth, and relationships, and what we can learn from others, even if they aren't our peers. So here we are. Jess and I are both coaches, and we met at a Joe Dispenza advanced meditation retreat a year ago. All things quantum field and understanding, the chakras, alignment of the chakras, and everything is energy and finding that alignment. But there was an incredible experience that we had out there with 1,900 other people. And so somehow we met and found each other. Conferences are a great way to not only learn, but to network and meet other people that are up to similar intentions. And so I really, her energy, her positive energy and enthusiasm and all things really resonated with me. It was a mirror for me, and we've had amazing conversations, personal conversations, supporting each other for the past year. And so I want to bring some of that to you all today. So without further ado, and you can find her on Instagram at @the_Jess_Hoffman. Hoffman. And she is Project Ultimate Life on her website, Project Ultimate Life. So Jess, how are you? San Diego, because I'm here in Boca Raton, Florida. And I'm so happy that you actually know where I am, because you visited me last year and you were in this studio with me when we had a fun interview with an older gentleman, George Dubeck. And we were having a conversation across the millennial, Gen X, and baby boomer generations. And so how are things going for you, digital nomad?
Very well. Just quickly first, I just want to correct the Instagram. It's _Jess Hoffman, just for your
Oh,
listeners,
thank you.
just in
Thank you.
case. Yeah. No
Yes.
issues. I got you. All is well. We were on a conversation today, and we're like, we have to capture this because there's
Yes.
so many great things to think about that I think everybody in their human experience goes through. Seeking clarity, what actions to take next, what goals to set, so you even know which direction you're kind of headed. And so that's sort of where we're picking up in this conversation now.
Yes. So here, the big conversation I want to speak about is gaining clarity. And so most people, when you ask them what they want, it's in your intimate partnership, your friends, in a coaching session, as a life strategist and coach, as you are as well. It's going on a discovery with an individual. I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers, but acting as a creative and critical thinking partner for another to support them in discovering, where are you, the truth about where you are and where do you want to go? What is the desired income and results outcome? It includes desired income, but what is the desired outcome that you're looking for and results primarily in those domains of health and wealth creation, and in relationships, developing and nurturing extraordinary relationships. And so it's gaining how do we support others and gaining clarity, and in the process gain our own clarity, as the only constant in life is change. So things are always changing, and no feeling is final, and often feelings come up and can derail us and distract us from our commitments. So one day we think we're clear and we're going in one direction, and then we meet someone or we have an experience or learn something new, and next thing you know, we're on another direction. It's like, well, I thought I wanted that, and now I think I want this. So what could you share with me about your journey? Because you're not even yet, you're young. You're at least more than 15 years younger than I am. So you're in that millennial generation still. And so so I could be your mother, almost kind of be your mother, and yet a big sister and a friend and yet a peer at the same time that I can learn from, because and I said this to you, just because I have lived more years on the planet, doesn't mean that necessarily I have more wisdom. I just have different wisdom. You have had different experiences and know different things, and I can learn from that, and vice versa. So, in terms of gaining clarity, how do we gain clarity?
Well, I think that I gave this some thought in the shower as where all
Yeah.
good thinking happens. And this really goes back to, for me at least, my journey back when I was 23 years old, right? And I think that the clarity that we seek in life, I think, is multi-layered. At that stage in my life, I had made the decision that I was going to travel the world and I was going to play with the law of attraction and embrace that for what it was. Through that journey, I ended up moving to Germany for a couple years, Malaysia a couple years. I was 6 years in Doha, Qatar, and then I left as a nomad. Now, things don't happen as instantaneously as we want. And I think that what people need to recognize as things often take longer than what we think they're going to. After I had basically gotten myself into a position in 2017, I wanted to start this project Ultimate Life Journey. And I was like, but I'm not living my ultimate life. I wasn't in the right relationship. I wasn't as healthy as I could have been. I wasn't as wealthy as I could have been. And I definitely could have been a better friend, and wanted to really look what it meant to go inside and, through radical honesty, start to unpeel the layers of the onion to get to living in alignment with my truest self. And that involved reforming a lot of habits, letting a lot of things that were no longer serving me go, etc. When I was 35, I painted a very clear vision of what I want for my future. It is on a canvas that is massive and huge, takes an entire wall. I wanted to, it's discipline was at the core and at the top, because I understand that discipline is truly the thing that we need to be able to get the results we desire. And it's the thing that comes the most difficult for a lot of us, right? Naturally,
Yep.
I'm not super disciplined, but through habit and consistency, you can develop these little practices that actually, when you look at it from the outside, it's like, oh, wow, you're so disciplined with that. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I just do that often enough, whether it's the band work or whatever it is, to get this certain specific result. My fitness journey this year has actually literally been the eye opener for that, of how true consistent action daily can actually get you a result. And it's shown me that in real time. So when I was 35 and I was painting this canvas around the new year, I wanted to meet a life partner who wanted to go all in on building businesses online so we could travel the world, cycle around the world, cage dive with sharks in South Africa, go to, South America, learn Spanish, all of these things. So for me, I am very clear in what I want. However, it's the steps to get there that aren't always super clear. Whether it's, we have things that come in emotionally, family, relationships, it's like we kind of unplug. I think that, we talk a lot about alignment, and you've reminded me of alignment often. But I often look at it like being a vacuum, and you're like plugged into the sky. And when we're aligned and our thoughts and our feelings, our emotions and our actions are true with who we are, it's like these magical things just kind of fall into place along the way. Abraham Hicks says it the best, right? Life is literally just throwing out rockets of desires. What I want, what I don't want, what I want, what I don't want. Then you get what you want. You're like, oh, turns out I don't really want that. Oh, this new thing comes in. I don't
Exactly.
really want that. Ooh, I like this. This is going to stick. And so in my own journey, and it's been inconsistent. As a nomad, there are lots of things that come up, lots of different, just all of it. The journey
Life is
itself,
lifing.
yeah, but the unfolding of it is truly, in reflecting, it's like when we listen to those downloads. I listened to some good books by the Hidden Collection where it's like, the impulses from the universe kind of navigating you your way. I got to California these last few days because I called the client and he was suddenly on his way to VidCon, which changed my plan instantly to then road trip 3 days to be at VidCon, to then meet the people, to then think, oh, I need this job, and then apply for a job when really I already have everything I got going on right now. But what did I want from that? I wanted the skill set. I wanted the stability. I wanted the incubator type apartment that I had in Doha, which had my cold plunge and my gym and all the things. So that appealed to me for all of these different reasons that maybe wasn't, what I can find when I'm living on the road in hotels, but there was something about that that was attractive. And then we have conversations with people all the time, which either help, they blur our vision and our clarity, or they bring a little bit more clarity to be like, that's right. That's what I want. But a lot of times there's a progression to things falling together. I look at it a lot like a puzzle, right? You can have 4 or 5 pieces to that puzzle, but if 1 or 2 pieces are missing, it's almost like we can't move on to the next puzzle and build that until we've figured out how to fill all the pieces of the current puzzle. And those come to us in a time when we sometimes least expect it. So I think for people, they want to get clarity. Maybe they are very clear on what they want, but the smaller steps, the big picture is there, right? But the smaller action steps, rather than trying to force it, we have to just let them fall together, right? Like Abraham Hicks, she says,
Trust
this
the
the best.
process.
Like
We
the
hear
road
these
that
cliches,
just,
trust a process,
yeah,
trust that you will know, you will discover along the way through your experiences. There gets to be intention, obviously, intention and effort and making the steps, but really looking at, this is where I'm going to insert here in what you're saying, and it's beautiful what you're saying, looking at Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and talking about looking at what's effective and what's not for where I say I want to go. I've got this clear vision. And so in the decision making, because there's, goodness knows from all the content, the books we can read and seminars and courses and content that's out there, there are tons of tools, tips, tricks, and strategies, listening to podcasts, right? Listening to the wisdom of others that can support us and guide us and give us strategy and different ways, to reach the goal. At the same time, it's like there are things that we need to look at internally within ourselves. And I'm going to say that it's looking at what are your unwavering principles and what are your top values? What are the things that you value, so that along the way, before you make a decision, whether it's a career move, taking on a consulting or work opportunity, going into a relationship, before you're about to eat that dessert, depending on what your goals are, right? In health optimization and wealth creation, and in what type of relationship do you want with different individuals, personally and professionally? So internally, what are our standards of excellence? Do we have standards of excellence for ourselves, so that it would make the decision making easier, wouldn't it? If along the way, day after day, when we're in the now and we're being present, if we're clear on our principles and our values, then we know what decision to make next, or what course of action that can lead us along the way. And of course, it's not about the destination. For some people it is, but as soon as you reach one goal, that becomes the new peak. And then, that's the peak, but then you're now ready to go to okay, got it. You're ready to go to the next level. So it's, who are we becoming? There's a lot of joy and fulfillment that I believe comes from just who we're becoming and the process along the way. So I hear what you're saying about the steps. So back to Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's the one read, I have to say, for all of the courses I've taken and trainings and as an ICF accredited coach, that read is either recommended, suggested, or required. And it's really looking at what's effective and not. So even as you and I can mirror each other and have personal conversations about things happening, in our lives, it's like, how's that working for you? What's that you feel good about it? How is that working for you? And so what can you say about that? Because sometimes we'll choose something. God gave us all the free will to choose what we want, choose our wants. That's one thing that we do have. And so I can be aware that, I'm not sure the head is telling me that this might not get me the result or the relationship or the income or money that I say that I want, but something else, whether it's the gut, which is the mind, the gut, or my heart, is telling me to, intuition, to follow that, to have that experience or try something on. Because worst case scenario, I'm going to get a lesson. If it's not a blessing, it's going to be a lesson along the way. So I may choose it, even if logically it doesn't look like it's meeting a standard, or there might be a misalignment. And then again, we continue to get greater clarity. How can you respond to that?
Well, I would say, first of all, alignment. Like, what is it, right? For me, I think anymore, I just recognize that if I have a thought and that provides a vision and it feels good, it feels then aligned with what I want or where I want to move forward. I also think that there are only so many times in a day. And if somebody's looking for a massive transformation of any kind, there does need to be some level of compassion for us to be able to sit back and say, where am I going to put my chips, my hours, into what bucket? Right. So, for
Definitely.
example, I have this planner. Okay. This is the Project Ultimate Life Planner. Essentially, within it, and I do this with clients, we look at the holistic life, right, which is lots of different sections. It's your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your family ships, your relationships, all of these different things. It is absurd to think that on any given day we would be able to, unless we were very intentional, make deposits into each of those buckets. And if we are depositing into each of those buckets of life, then they might be very small little gestures to just kind of nurture it to keep it going. But first of all, self awareness is really important. So if somebody doesn't
Huge.
know who they are, what they want, I'm going to just say their Enneagram, their Myers Briggs, for you, it's the Clifton test, the Strengths Finder, like all these different parts of themselves, and really, really know what excites them, what energizes them, what, fuels them, then they're never really going to get there regardless. So self awareness, by all means, is truly kind of the first step to be able to even get clarity on what it is that you want.
And
I know for myself, coaching is massive because I'm that one on one. I just thrive in, the energy and connection of people. So coaching makes a lot of sense for me because it fuels me and I'm able to overpour. You can't pour from an empty cup. And that in and of itself fills me up. So that is obviously something I want to be contributing to and growing in whatever capacity that looks like.
which is
But your
exactly
health,
how we align. So we have
yeah.
that desire to inspire. And I believe one of the greatest motivators is inspiration. So a desire to inspire others and to see new possibilities that they have not seen before. For themselves. So it's not only seeing the potential, inspired action, with commitment. And so with that, everything is energy. A universal law and principle that I always say is most important: keeping our energy high. We align, we vibe, the same way. And seeing we have that. Thank you, Dr. Joe Dispenza, that heart, brain, gut coherence, that we learned about, and moving our energy and seeing what is true for us. Where is that alignment within ourselves, and being self-aware is a guide, such an important guide. And P.S., it's the number one thing lacking in leadership today is self-awareness. There are many executives and founders and leaders, and they're doing incredible things, but there's a sort of an existential crisis, or there's a lack of joy or fulfillment or purpose. Because there's a sort of like, who am I? Like, I got all the doingness that I got to accomplish things and get here, but there's a limitation also, and a lack of self-awareness. And most breakdowns in organization are a function of failed communication and ways of being, the way leaders show up, with just a lack of self-awareness.
Hmm.
And so their delivery of message. So I appreciate so much that you're talking about that self-awareness, and, us both being super hyper self-aware, right? And then how we can also, because we're present listeners, being attuned to each other's needs and emotions, etc. So it's like we have the practical tools as coaches, and so we also know how to apply them in our relationship, in our communication.
Hmm. And I think another thing that really holds, and I'm guilty of this 100%, is that so then we get the clarity, we have the vision, but then there's the limiting beliefs or there's the perceived roadblocks, right? So I can't do this until I've done this. I know that I have this in me 100% because my number one
I get
goal,
it.
right? I mean, you know what my number one goal is. Like, I left, I'm looking for a partner, but da 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 da. And so it's like, oh, I can't go do that until this is done. So what's the journey to be able to get this before it's to the next one? Well, okay, so I'll skip this and I'll just go straight to the next one, whatever your next second goal is or priority. And then it becomes, okay, well, there's the limiting beliefs, right? There's the, oh, maybe I'm not good enough, or I'm not, whatever the thoughts that come up for. But I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and he said, just remember, everybody else has the same insecurities that you do.
Exactly.
So everybody else, we all started from, well, we know where we came from, you know, the
Yeah.
birds and the bees talk.
Yeah.
And we had to grow along this journey. And so none of us inherently came onto this planet with absolute clarity. But, we all have these gifts and we have these strengths, but then we think, oh, everybody else is doing it, or that's already saturated, or whatever we want to tell ourselves that stop ourselves. But then we have to, and I think this is a strategy that I'm really developing within myself more and more, is just going into silence, doing meditations. The great thing about being a nomad is I can find some very cool, driving around very cool spaces, just kind of stop and connect. And it is through that connection that I feel, it's going to sound like woo woo language, but I feel like that's safe here to say, but it's like the downloads, right? So I'm getting these like impulses or these downlights like, oh, go to California. Oh, go do this. Oh, go do this. And even though those actions may not be directly in line with my financial goals, for example, they are definitely in alignment with other goals that I have. And so, and just getting out and meeting people and understanding, for example, right now, what is California about? I've been in the Middle East for 6 years. I had loads of different types of limiting beliefs on what I would be able to achieve there as a speaker and all these types of things. And I come back here and I'm like, I can do that here. Like it's a complete, I don't know Arabic. Here I speak English. So great. So it's like everybody has these things that come up that stop them, and they truly are roadblocks. And I think what happens is you can get to a point where if you're not making progress along the path that you want to, right? Because, and I'm the only way I can best associate this is my friend Alexa and I cycled across the United States, and it became the logo of my company. And it's just what you mentioned. Every time you get through and you break through, right? You break through to that next level, you've topped the mountain, you get to experience this amazing feeling as you just without breaks are just going down the mountain. And it is the most exciting feeling. And when we've accomplished certain things or we have developed certain skill sets, we can feel how amazing that is. But then we get to the next mountain and we're looking up and we're like, how are we going to do this one? Right? Well, when you can reflect and you have enough life under your belt, then you can kind of look back and you kind of think like, okay, now I'm on to this next journey. What roadblocks got in the way from being able to accomplish at least this one? And I think I've come pretty clear, even just we'll call it today, of the certain things, traveling all the time and going to different time zones, and that all brings a lot of um, roadblocks into the experience that prevent successes in other ways. So if we reflect and we can identify those roadblocks, then it becomes as simple as what's the solution? So, all right, if this has stopped me here, what do I need to do to be able to move past that? Great. And then implement it and execution, right? And this is where I think becoming very conscious of planning your life in 3 month chunks to be able to say, like, okay, at the beginning of the year, I'm going to do a bikini competition. I'm going to go do this, and I'm grounded for 4 months while I work on these different things. Someone else can do something similar, even if their life is similar. I think Layla Hermosi says it the best. She says, fuck your mood, follow the plan. Well, okay, right? That's great advice. And it's okay for you to change your mind while you're in whatever the plan that it is that you're working on, those rockets of desires. Maybe they come into your reality and you're like, oh, just kidding, changing the plan. But it's still, if it's directionally focused and the bigger goals aren't changing all of the time, then maybe the path that you take to get to those goals might have to be just slightly different. And that's where it comes into that intuition, listening to ourselves, rockets of desires, want, don't want, and then focusing on, like you said, energy, right? And I feel like this is why health, we align here, is probably in my life the number one priority, because I know that if I'm healthy and my mind as well. There's a connection between the mind and body, certainly. And I'm able to process certain things, and I'm living in alignment with my best energy. Man, the little things in life like don't even matter. Like it just doesn't register on your radar. You don't notice it. You're not paying attention to those things because you're just up here and you're seeing opportunity and you're having these amazing connections and you're learning from people um, as you're going. And so if you don't feel well because you haven't been exercising and you're eating, food that's not good for you, and then that's going to impact your mind, which is also then going to impact
Absolutely.
how you feel about
Yes.
yourself, your self-esteem, and all of
Health
that.
number one value, I say. So
Hmm.
so at in mid 50s versus mid 20s, I value now health at a whole other level. It's a top priority. Wasn't even thinking about it because when you're in your 20s, maybe even in your 30s, as we get older and things change. So getting older is inevitable and aging
Hmm.
is certainly optional. And I'm prioritizing health and wellness and longevity because all the things men and women alike are going to go through hormonal changes and life circumstances, and babies are born and people are dying and career changes and all the things, right? And our body is changing over time. But if we don't keep our energy high, and that means what? It's not just about the typical proverbial diet and exercise, choose your diet, but noticing what we put in our body, on our body, moving our body, the mobility, all of these, the sleep. If you aren't getting enough, people are not sleeping well. That just so much, the technology is such a distraction, and we're overloaded and multitasking and doing so many things and pulled in so many directions. Kids are in 27 sports, and we have, two income households now, working moms. It's like everyone's busy and everyone's, I'm tired.
Hmm.
They're tired. It's mentally, physically, emotionally tired. And then that is impacting our decisions, affecting our metabolism, our cortisol hormone level is spiking. This is, one thing leads to another. That's why I like to coach into what I call the trifecta of that: health, wealth, and relationships. It's super with the health at the top, really. Because if you're not mental, physical, emotional, your financial, your spiritual, your sexual health, all of these things, we're both masculine and feminine energy, and finding the balance in who we are and how we show up in the world. It's like, who am I and what am I here to do?
Hmm.
What's my purpose? And what I do care is to make a positive impact, on the lives of others. That is fulfilling. They'll say the gift is in the giving. And so there's
Hmm.
nothing more fulfilling than knowing that you made someone smile or you increased their energy. I brought my energy, my high energy, and others take our high energy. I want to have high
Yeah.
energy because, the stronger I am, the healthier I am, then I can show up bigger and better for others that I love and
Hmm.
care about, and so make a difference. And help elevating and raising the consciousness on the planet, like as a whole. Each individual, I think, doesn't realize there's an epidemic of do I matter? And that self-worth conversation, as you said. Like, what's
Hmm.
my purpose? Do I even matter? Who cares? I'm just one person. And people think that their words and actions are insignificant because they're just one, but they do. But they
Right.
do. So it's why I
And
love, yeah, go ahead.
And I think one of the most important things that you just said right there, and it all goes back to clarity, is like, I did this when I was 23. I would sit out under the stars on this trampoline in the backyard, and I would just be channeling, like trying to talk to my 35-year-old version of myself, my 55-year-old version of myself. Like, what would she want? Now I'm talking about my 95-year-old version of myself. And I constantly, what keeps me in check with certain behaviors is I'm breaking records in my 90s. I see these women online and social media that are doing deadlifts, breaking or setting world records because people in their 90s have never done it. And my mental image now is I'm breaking that. So if you can have a clear end in mind, right? Backwards design of life, start with the end in mind. Where do you want to be
Stephen
in your
Covey.
90s? And
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Well, this is actually an educational concept. Tomlinson, something else. It was like, if you can think about the end and if you're breaking records in your 90s and you're healthy and you're physical, then your action steps today around that make a lot of sense. You don't just suddenly become fit in your 80s, right? It was a lifetime of walking daily, doing weight training, et cetera, that leads to the ability to do that.
And
So I
it's
think if
never too
people,
late. So
and it's
there
never
is
too
a
late to
little
be
bit
who
of a
you,
give
yeah,
up. So what happens is you'll notice if I look at pictures of people, you think about, friends I went to high school with and I went to college with, and Facebook and social media will sort of show you, you'll see images of people like, oh, wow, I haven't seen him or her in 20 years. And something very common that you see is that weight coming on.
right.
That weight is coming on and people are getting less and they're less in shape, if you will. And why is that?
Because
Why is
people
that? They're
believe that that's what happens when you get older. When you get older, you just gain weight. That's what you do. I'm 39, almost 40, and I'm in better shape than I was when I was a competitive athlete in high school, training 2 to 4 hours a day. Right. And I do small little action steps. It's nothing crazy. It's walking, weight bands, a little bit of weight training, but I'm very intentional with the food that I put in my body. And of course, I have sweets, and of course, I'll binge and do these things. But then the backlash of that is then I don't feel good. And the more you pay attention, the more you're like, oh, that doesn't feel good. So I'm going to change my future action steps or just suffer the consequences. But as
how
long as,
much, yeah.
go ahead.
I was going to say, how much pain do people have to be in to make a change? People will, how much pain do people have to be in to make a change?
I think it's the idea. There's a saying that goes with it. It's that the pain of it staying the same has to become more
Greater.
than the pain of, or greater than the pain of actually taking the actions to change,
Yep.
right? So do I want to go to the gym every day? Do I want energy with my kids? Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to give and take that? Maybe it's not even, maybe it's just hacks. And I think this is where what stands out with my programs a lot is that it isn't about 2 to 3 hours in the gym. It's about compounding or double dipping into certain habits and behavior that actually promote more behavior. I walk and work on the treadmill all the time. And I mean, I literally I'm traveling around in a car and I brought some some clamps to go with the board and I'm on the treadmill in these various hotels working with my laptop because
So
I can dial in.
what would you say to viewers then that say, well, that's wonderful for you that you're traveling around the world as a digital nomad, with it, you're not with a family at this moment, to all the people out there that have the children, whether they're in a traditional household, they're married with their children, or for all of the single parents out there that are co-parenting and they have work and children. What would you say to them given where you sit? Because it looks like as an outsider, much easier said than done if you just need to focus on you as an individual and not be responsible, for others.
As respectfully and compassionately as I can say this, I would say to those people, they have even more of a somewhat responsibility to be able to be the change or role model the behaviors that will ensure their children grow up to have the certain habits that are going to contribute to their health. So if they want to become healthier or they want to be more active, get their kids in on it. Come double dip there, right? Because your kids, one, want to spend time with you. So how can you spend more time and also increase your health? Maybe those are walks together. Maybe
Beautiful.
those are, doing videos together. You can compound the two. Yes, it's more difficult, 100%. I can't even imagine. I cannot put myself in that role or that situation to understand what people go through or the limitations. But all you really need to do is 5 minutes of band a day, and you can do that with your kids. You're there doing homework. Okay, kids, guess what? It's time to take a break. Let's do quick 20 jumping jacks. Let's do, 30 seconds of breath work. And you're teaching them these strategies that are optimization strategies. And you're actually teaching them how to then use them in their own life. So yes, those are excuses, but again, when we're thinking about climbing the mountain, because nothing is easy in life, I love the choose your hard. It's hard to be, 200 pounds over the weight. It's hard to go to the gym. What are you going to choose? Choose your hard.
Exactly. Yep.
Poor health is hard. Okay, it's all hard. Choose your hard. I love that. And you're just showing your kids, you're modeling to the next generation certain habits that aren't a part of mass society, right? Doing these types of things, like it's a lot easier to go and eat and do the eating and the
Yeah, it's
drinking and
like,
all.
well, I don't know if I want to give up my morning, if somebody says I don't want to give up my morning Dunkin' Donuts, just I like it. So if that means I'm, going to be, overweight, then so be it. So
Yeah.
obviously, so all I would say to that is there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong or
No,
good or bad
absolutely.
in any of this. It's just if you want to achieve a particular goal. So a coach just says, I'm not here to tell you what you should want, to should on you. It's up for you to decide what it is you want. And if you have a desire, Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich principle number 1 is you must have, in order to succeed, to achieve anything, is a desire, a strong desire to see it happen first and foremost, along with the willingness and then the commitment, to make it happen. And so with that desire, because results don't lie, results will tell you what you've been committed to. Let me see your body. Let me see your bank account. Let me see your relationships. And I can tell you what you've been committed to. So that, and that either is or isn't what you want. It will show us where you are, and you can reflect on how you got there in what's working. There's a lot of things that got you, that for the things you are happy about, of where you are. So for where you want to go, then it's like, okay, well, this is what would be required if you really want it. And then you do like the cost benefit analysis. Do I want to put that intention and that effort into that? Is it worth it, quote unquote, worth it to me? Am I worthy? Because again, we have a worthiness conversation. Am I worth it to do what it takes, like no matter what, to achieve those goals? And and there's there is nobody to tell you what your goals should be except you. Right. Nobody walks our path. We are each one of the final messages that I do want viewers to know for this conversation is, again, there is no right or wrong or good or bad. It is, what do you want? And nobody can truly, really understand us and our truth, because we each are on our own individual path, and others can only see us, view us, or understand through their own lens and through their own perspective, from their own, life experiences. So it's not for, you are your own guru. There is no Oz. I love Tony Robbins' documentary with his Date with Destiny seminar that he does. I'm not your guru. Yeah, I'm not your guru. You're not my guru. So you can use others as sort of a sounding board to give us feedback, which is neutral. Hey, this is what's happening. Tell me what you're hearing. Yeah. And so, and you ask 20 people, you can get 20 different perspectives, 20 different opinions.
Yeah. And I would say my final kind of feedback so we can wrap it up and actually stick to a time, would be, we know deep down what we are doing and what we aren't doing.
Yes.
And most of us are 80% there, but there's that 20%, right? They say you get to 90% and you're halfway there. It's because that last 10% to whatever is truly the hardest. And so radical honesty, sitting down, hearing your excuses, because they're all excuses. I've got loads of everybody has excuses, and I can acknowledge this is an excuse and I'm not ready to solve that problem yet. But it comes down to radical honesty and optimizing in certain areas of life so that you're able to level up the health, so you can then have more energy to build the wealth and actually pour into your
relationships. Beautifully said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, beautifully said.
Radical honesty.
Yes. And then with that, right? Radical acceptance of ourselves, where we are, grace, compassion, use the word compassion for ourselves and for others. So where we are, okay, and acceptance of ourselves and others, along the way. And so there is no one way. There is no one way. And so try taking some sort of action and failing forward. We failed forward, lessons and blessings along the way. So thank you so much, Jess, for what you are leading others into. You're just such a bright light, and I appreciate you so much and what I can learn from you as a mirror, exactly. And so it's never goodbye. It's to be continued, to be continued. So if you are a leader in any domain in the health, wealth, and relationship, I want to hear from you. So you can find me at tina.com. Lizzio on Instagram, Tina Lizzio, and tinalizzio.com, Lead What You Live podcast with Tina Lizzio. You'll find me on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. So it's to be continued.
To be continued.